So, continuing the theme of tribal versus New Age thinking, I have been thinking for part three a little about the fact that we can only have a New Age industry and New Age ways of looking at things, or we could say a less real way of looking at things when we live in a civilized world, which of course we all do. The civilized world causes chaos in many ways, but it's kind of forced us to invent something of a spirituality, something of a culture that tends to keep us motivated and keep us belonging and keep us thinking about this world, the other world, what life is about, how we can cope in it, how we manage sickness, how we manage troubles, how we manage anxiety, stress, etc., etc. And Larry is expressing a lot of that beside me as I said that. But the point I wanted to make is that civilization opens up doors for us to create culture, spirituality, healing measures, all sorts of things that tend to veer away from what real culture, real spirituality, real living can do. And I think we have a tough job on our hands when we've got to knock at the door of reality and push away behind us something that we feel has sustained us for a long time. And that is the whole caboodle of what mind, body, spirit, New Age culture offers us. Pushing that away is understandably difficult for many people if they're trying to revert back to something that is real. How do you revert back? Actually, there is no back when you live in a civilized society, because by its very nature, it's created almost an antidote to being able to look at real culture, real indigenous culture. You can only do it from a distance. You can't ever live it again. And as sad as that sounds, if we actually put our minds to understanding what it's about, as opposed to civilized ways, we can actually get some satisfaction, we can get some understanding, we can get some relief. And I think this is what we generally are having to do today. We're having to talk about it, understand it, so that we recognize the difference between natural, indigenous, tribal thinking and how we would have lived and behaved. Behavior is an important thing in this subject. And what we end up doing in an artificial sense, courtesy of the New Age industry, which tries to redress the balance. It tries to say, this is what you need in your life. Your life is very materialistic. It's very physical. It's all about the mundane, if you like, the things we have to do every day so that we can earn money, so that we can live our lives. And it's really quite damaging in general ways. I don't think it's normal. Civilized ways of living isn't normal. We have to adapt and make it become normal, which is a crazy thing to do, but that's what we're forced to do because that's what we're living with. I think the only way we can properly understand this is to start talking about it. I've said this before, and I'll probably continue to say this. We've got to examine the kinds of things we're into, if you like, whether we're into alternative medicine practices, disciplines, whether we're into neo-shamanism, it doesn't matter what we're practicing, what we're into. We've got to start to look at what the heck it's all about. Does it actually, the traditions we're practicing and the ways we're practicing, do these actually relate to anything that is original, anything that is of the past, that is natural? This is a big question, but we have to ask it. We're having to look this in the eye if we want to sort ourselves out. We've all got civilized problems. I have, you have, everyone has. We all have, because we live in a civilized world. But it doesn't mean to say that we can't actually look beyond what that is and discover for ourselves what we can do to understand culture, to understand spirituality, and to gain something out of it. Let's remember that civilizations, in the plural, began a long time ago. So human beings are accustomed to the civilized way of living. You look right back to ancient Egypt, civilized. Ancient Greece, civilized. Ancient Rome, civilized. Mesopotamia, civilized. You have to look at indigenous people, nomadic people, people who are hunter-gatherers, people who are living in the wild, to rediscover what it is all about. You can't go back and do it again. You might talk about rewilding, but you cannot do it again because we've been screwed up in the head with civilized ways of living. It's not that much of a problem if we look at it squarely in the eye, but it is a problem if we're thinking that hunter-gatherers, nomads, people from the deeper past who live in a wild fashion, natural fashion, lived with the earth and the other world, if we think that they had a civilized way about them, they didn't. They haven't. My people lived on the edge of civilized society, but they were not taking the civilized idea on board. Not for a long time they didn't, right up till recent times. So I feel I'm qualified to talk about this, and in a way, it gives me a sense of aloneness, because when I talk to people about it, they seem to think I'm having a go, which perhaps I am, but I'm trying to point out the difference, that there is an actual difference, and there are many, many charlatans and different people out there who will take you for a ride, courtesy of the industry, and will tell you that they are all about the culture that used to be, but they're not. Anyway, some more food for thought here, but I have to end now. Just give you a few thoughts. I have to end now because the dog wants to go and sit in the garden. I'll talk again soon. Thanks for listening.